think they're quite well known. I don't need to introduce them. We have a good mix of business models between free-to-air and pay, between joint ventures and international players directly operating in the region, and local players. Everybody's dabbled into OTT and multi-platforms, some more than others. So I think we have a good mix for you today. So we're going to kick off with, if I want to make a summary statement, just 10 minutes. Kidding. If you look on the outside, broadcast looks like, it seems like if you count by channel numbers, it's amazing. They're increasing every day. You can't keep up with how many. If you look at the size of the advertising market, it doesn't look so rosy. But you're all happily operating and growing your businesses, I presume, and believe in the sector. So basically, we'd like our discussion to give our audience an idea of where the hope comes from, given that not all the fundamentals look great. So we'll start with the profitability aspect. Quick question. Are any of you profitable?
I guess for my wife I am.
Bravo.
Okay. I'll take that one and start with it. I think basically I have to say we are one of the lucky ones that we are marginally profitable. I think Rotana Group has done very well in cost cutting and in controlling, and there was a lot of restructuring and continued restructuring. We have driven a lot of our costs out, but while maintaining or improving our revenues. So basically, it was quite a drive to get to profitability, and that wasn't an easy task.
Or you're talking about the TV business?
As a group,
if I isolate TV by itself, would that still apply?
I would say pretty much so. Okay, so as well, it's at let's call it at the borderline.
And does the fact that you sell yourself your own movies help?
Sorry?
Does the fact that you sell yourself your own movies help?
No, the fact that I'm pricing them at a premium.
Okay. So Fahad has been very brave. He's been first to the bat.
But let me be very honest with you, Karim, is that it is a very difficult market, and there are a lot of our competitors, a lot of us, and even us. You know, some years we struggle, and it's a very tough business. The model doesn't work. The model that we have today doesn't work, and there are very fundamental reasons why profitability is not very easily found in this market. There are only the big players that can enjoy, because of their abilities to negotiate and to kind of drive mass or drive volumes that they can reach to, profitability or break even. The rest of the teams, the rest of our competitors and the rest of the smaller companies actually do suffer. Most of them we know lose money. And there are basic reasons for these losses, and one of these reasons is honestly, I think, the market itself.
We're going to get to that, but may I please interrupt you, because I don't want them to use you as an excuse to not answer the question.
Okay.
I can see you looking at me.
In any order that you wish.
I think there's no such thing as marginally profitable. You're either profitable or you're not. I don't think that actually exists. But I don't think you should look at it that way. And certainly, I come from a news channel point of view, which is even more difficult to claim anyone that is profitable. I think if you're working in a different kind of field of entertainment and other things, maybe the whole combination of things that you do are marginally profitable, or a little bit, or you cover your costs. But I think there are different models and different ideas, and you deal with it in a different way. I think there's always a value added for everything that you do, probably more in news and what your role is as a news organization. So if you think of it, your bottom line, are you profitable? I don't think anyone is. But if you think of it as a value of what you're producing, maybe in 3 or 4 or 5 years, you have to look at it in the long term and say, well, maybe in 10 years, what we're doing at the moment is worth X amount of money that will eventually make it profitable. But I don't think anyone goes into this business thinking that they're going to be profitable from I think the usual 3 and 5 and 7-year business plans that other businesses operate in. This is a completely different ball game, and you have to think of it as a very, very long term. And in that case, I don't think anyone day to day, first, second, third year is profitable. And anyone who says they are is probably not telling the truth.
Okay, Sanjay, you're nodding in agreement.
Well, I work for an American company, so that's half the answer.
And you've
And then
recently forayed into the
my
wild
next
zone of your
contract
own.
with David is 2 years away, so I can give some safe answers. We don't work on a loss, certainly, and there is nothing called marginal profits in this business. I completely agree. But having said that, my work has taken me to a lot of geographies, and I feel this is one of the most challenging markets as far as keeping your bottom lines sharp is concerned. And we are one of the few companies which work in this region and have a pie in free-to-air market as well as in the pay TV market. In addition to the fact that we have a free-to-air, the world's only National Geographic channel dubbed in Arabic in this part of the world. So there is a three-way revenue stream, but that doesn't make three-way contribution to profits necessarily. So it's challenging most of the times, but we try to keep our head out as much as we can. I don't know if that is an answer of yes. Partly yes. Yeah.
If I stripped out your licensing revenues from your pay TV channels, are you profitable?
You cannot be in this business profitable if you take any of the legs away, because it's so challenging a market that, and we will get to that. The free-to-air market works in a different dynamics and pay TV in a different dynamics. If you strip me off any of my clothes, well, it's not going to be a good sight.
We don't want the naked Sanjay on the panel. I think we all agree we'd like Sanjay to keep his clothes on. Okay?
That's a whole different pay TV channel.
Too bad you can't have those around. Dr. Riyadh might shut you down, so be careful. David.
Simple answer, yes, but please don't tell my shareholders, because I haven't paid them a dividend yet. The joy the pay TV has is that, and you preface the question about advertising, the joy of pay TV is that we derive our revenue from a different purse than everyone else. And I can tell you that OSN is profitable, yes.
Okay. We're going to get back to the dynamics of pay TV, but as a follow-up to the initial question, I'm going to make a statement, see if you agree with me or not, particularly Fahad and Sanjay. If you look at the macros, the macroeconomics and the fundamentals of this market, it's almost like if your name is not NBC, don't bother going for a free-to-air general entertainment play. Go to niches, go to local geographies. Do you agree or disagree?
Totally disagree.
Because?
I think now the because is we could spend hours, honestly.
You have 2 minutes.
Kareem, to talk about the because, but let me start with that. First of all, I think we have shown that there are other successful models, and it's not about niche. And this is, for example, we have Khadijia, who's doing an exceptionally huge success in the market. And there are issues as to how to measure success and how to measure failure and how to measure all of these things. And these are issues that I believe we will be addressing later on. The consumer or the viewer is eager to get more content, eager to get more. Actually, our consumers and our viewers are people who spend so many hours watching TV content. So it's a market that is still TV driven. There are a lot of viewership from that, and no one single body is fulfilling all the requirements of that. There is diverse. And I was actually doing an interview and somebody asked me, I said, look, I love the competition. I love what NBC is. NBC is a successful company and we respect them and we believe that they have a very good model, but it's not the only model. There are other models and these models will succeed and they do see it and we believe that they have seen it already.
Could we argue, sorry, just on Khalijiyya, couldn't you argue that the success of Khalijiyya came when Khalijiyya decided to focus purely on Saudi Arabia as opposed to trying to be this panacea, pan-Arab that everyone had been having a go at that maybe doesn't even exist anymore? Hasn't it effectively become a local channel but happens to be local in the biggest market?
As I said, I think Kareem, as I said, we could spend hours. But honestly, I think more and more local channels, it's not just Al-Khalijiyya, you have Al-Hayat model in Egypt where they came, they built a model to serve the Egyptians and they succeeded in that. And more local, the market is moving local. Everybody, needs to understand that ultimately, we recognize the need first. We fulfilled that need first, but then we went Egypt, Masriya, we went Lebanon, we went and so on. So basically, sometimes you need to understand, as you said, the dynamics of the market. But I'm just trying to say, no, it's not the true statement that you said. There are models, there are so many variables that we could talk about, but we genuinely, we are there, we are standing there, and we have been very strong in our position. We believe that we are succeeding.
And we also shouldn't shy away from the fact that there are other imperatives than profit. In our organisation, I have to deliver a profit. There are organisations, and I think of the sports broadcasters, they have no desire to deliver a profit. If you look at most of us as broadcasters run our business with our content costs, which is our number one costs, being a fraction of our revenue. You look at our friends in Qatar, their programming costs are a multiple of their revenue. Indeed, our friends at Abu Dhabi, for their sports channels, their content costs are a multiple of their revenue. And there's no real desire on their behalf to make a profit. They're in business for a different reason, and that's to place themselves on the stage. So profits are achievable if your business is run well and if you desire to make them. But some people don't desire to make profits.
But then that must have an impact on all of you, because when there's non-commercial money in the market, that has an impact on content costs, that has an impact on salaries, that has an impact on...
Absolutely. It skews the market. And in the pay TV market, as we know, a comment was made in a previous panel about the fact that OSN doesn't compete in sport. We do compete in sport, we just can't compete in football, because we're not going to pay stupid amounts of money for football, and that's what happens in this region. So yes, it does. It inflates costs on content, and it's very, very frustrating. But there's more than one way to skin the cat. We now have, through our association with Abu Dhabi, the best Champions League qualifiers, the local league is now on the OSN platform, because there are other ways of structuring the business. But it is frustrating. I think there's probably less wage inflation at the moment, but certainly from a content perspective, there's huge content inflation.
This wasn't in my list, but since we're bringing it up,
we're friends.
Why aren't you and Jazeera getting together and doing the logical move?
Ask them.
Wouldn't that be the ultimate path to profitability?
Yeah, look,
sports content is usually the main driver of the long-term success of a pay TV platform.
Yeah, and again, let's take both of those, and I'm certainly not going to dominate the conversation, although most of my staff here will tell you I always do. When you said we're going to talk briefly, everyone at OSN, no, he's not, because he never does. There are two things. There are regulators in this room and in this region who are desirous to have a single platform for all consumers in their market. That's not a bad objective. The consumer suffers in this region because they have to have multiple platforms to watch all of their favourite content. Rather perversely, the content providers allow that to happen on cable, but don't allow it to happen on satellite, which is beyond me. But and there are models in the world like the United Kingdom where there's only one platform. There are about 8 different pay TV providers. They all operate on the same technical platform, which is run by one organisation, and it is a regulated environment, and it works very, very well. So does it make sense for the consumer to only have to have one box to receive all of their content? Absolutely. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's any commercial dominant position, and if that platform is OSN, and we think it should be, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are then commercially dominant, because, as I say, I can't afford to pay the sort of money that BN Sport pays for football, and I never will.
We mentioned...
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we mentioned sort of doing business for non-commercial purposes. Is it fair to say that Sky News Arabia effectively is a partnership that is not, where the financial risk is being borne by one entity and the international partner is giving the know-how, so the profit is secure in that sense for one party, but the other party is getting something else out of the deal? Is that a fair classification?
I think you think you read the contract or something. I don't think that's... It is what it is. It's a 50-50 joint venture, so I think the risks and the responsibilities are shared by both parties, and that's the whole idea of a joint venture. But I think just if I may just go back to one point that was mentioned earlier, and I think the whole issue of regulation and what is allowed and what's not allowed in the region, I think that we have a long way to go, and I think that's part of the reason why people are going for more local content and local channels, because you can gauge your audience, you can gauge your market, you can gauge what is successful and what's not. And then when you start going beyond borders, that's when things get a little bit more complicated. And then you talk about things like legal rights and when someone has a legal case against you in one country and it's not in another country. So all these things get a little bit more complicated. But I think what's happening now is that people have tried to go for pan-Arab channels and pan-Arab platforms for good reason, because we think that there's an uptake in all geographies. But in reality, each market is different, and people are realizing that you can actually be quite profitable if you are more targeting more your audience and
So who are you targeting?
I think we're a completely different model. I mean, honestly, I'm sitting here with experts in their own field, but I'm a little bit different from the others. But a pan-Arab news channel is a completely different thing, and I'll be more than happy to go into the trends and what's happening in the market. And you now call it video, and you don't call it TV, all that kind of thing, and what's happening in the market. And there's a lot of business models that are still out there that we, as so-called experts, haven't really discovered, and we don't really know the impact of what is going on. And what is there a different model other than just direct advertising that's going to affect us in 4 and 5 and 6 years, and people watching short videos as opposed to a linear TV, and all that kind of environment that we don't really know what's going to happen exactly in the future.
Plans specifically, for example, to go into advertiser-funded programming or to go into charging for content on different platforms? If today you're sitting and saying, okay, we're not profitable yet, but we have hopes that there's other models. Is there something specific?
You have to go after everything. You have to go after every single possibility that you have, whether it's syndicating your content, whether it's advertising, whether it's whatever you can do.
So what is it that's going to drive your profitability in 5 years' time, you think?
I think it's still going to be the more that people like your content and want to see your content, and you are the person who has different and better content, whether it's in any sort of form. It's all about people knowing your brand and knowing your name and getting to know what you're offering. And then the money will come on all these different platforms that some of them we don't even know what they are.
When I have, let's say, a news, but it applies to everybody else. Take any channel. If there's a Sky News, there's a BBC, there's Arabia, there's a Jazeera, there's a Rush Today, China even has an Arabic news channel. Yeah. What is this differentiating? Why are they going to like your content only to the point where you're going to be profitable?
I think you look at it that way and you say, well, there are all these channels, but what are people really watching? What is
a very good question, which we'll come to. Nobody knows.
What is the trend, and how are they consuming news? How are they consuming their news? Are they looking at a linear TV? Or are they looking at the content that's coming originally on linear TV and then chopped up into little pieces and getting it through all these different ways? So that's really, it's not about the one channel, it's how they actually are using and the trends that are happening in the future.
But broadcasters the world over aren't in the news business to make money. They never have been. The news never made money. There's only one news channel in the world that I know anything about, and I've been involved with quite a few, that makes money, and that's Sky News Australia, for one simple reason: it doesn't pay for any of its content. It's given to it by its shareholders. It's a great way to make money. But news isn't there to make money. News is there as an influencer and as a reason and a credibility factor for a network.
I was trying to get him to say that, but
sorry,
you said it for me.
No, but Karim, if I want to kind of just drive back to what we are talking about, and honestly, when you started and said, is it profitable? And I just wanted to say one thing, and then you can move.
Sure.
If you look at the macro of the things, and that's why we are everybody is trying to say to you, here is the problem, here is the problem. And actually, it's very clear to us what's the problem. You have a very depressed market in terms of size. Mm-hmm. We have the lowest in the world in terms of per capita income. When we talk about advertising market, you have a huge piracy that kills the pay platform, and then a lot of issues with regulators in that market as well. And then last but not least, you have a very monopolistic, to not use other words, structure in the market.
We'll be talking about the sales aspect of things.
I'm very simple guy.
We'll come to that.
Very happy. But I'm just trying to say we are going around it, and everybody is talking about it, and until you fix the fundamentals of the market, and until we as an industry understand we are in this boat together, we are killing it.
There's something that bothers me with this argument, because the other people who are taking advantage of what you see as a negative are also part of the industry.
I agree.
Have also invested a lot.
I agree.
Have also think that they deserve to make money from their businesses. So why are they in the wrong?
I'm gonna say one thing to you: don't kill the goose. Is it that
lays the golden?
That lays the golden egg. we take today, and if you allow me just 1 minute to explain an issue that we have today are facing. If you look today at the movie industry in the Arab world, it's dying. It is dying. And give it a couple of more years and you will not have any movies being produced by anybody because it doesn't make money. It will be just new guys that will produce movies because they want to ... Okay? Reality today, the industry is dying because what's happening? There is piracy, there is no money, so we cannot fund, and that's what's going to happen. So the quality of production is going to die. And this is going to be the same for all of us. Then suddenly everybody fine. Today you are enjoying that you are buying this movie for a very low price and stuff like that. Tomorrow the movie is not there. The audience will not be there.
And
so you need to understand it that way.
And the fundamental funder of our industry, actually the pay industry, so I can almost look from the outside on this one, is the advertising revenues. And Fahad is very, very polite. I'm Australian, I'm less polite. The advertising industries in this region are corrupt, full stop. And we'll delude ourselves there are $3 billion of advertising revenues in television, and every report you ever see written about this region is about $3 billion. There's not $3 billion, there's $900 million. The other $2.1 million, just billion dollars, just doesn't exist. And the sooner we stop deluding ourselves that we're operating in a vibrant environment, and the sooner we start to realise that we need an accurate, reliable currency in advertising, the sooner we get Dr. Riyad's initiative in Saudi, which is a fantastic initiative, which we are fully supportive of, even though advertising isn't really our main revenue stream. The sooner this industry will come into the real world, because at the moment, when it comes to funding, it's not in the real world. Sorry, I went on to a topic ahead of time.
We're jumping all over, but the points are good.
I think
I want to ask Sanjay about this because you've had experience on both sides of the matter. So when you entered this market, I'm not talking about the pay, on the free-to-air side, you had partners who were giving you license fees that were, I presume, covering your financial risk. Now you've elected to go and spend one of yours on your own.
Yeah.
So you've seen it from both sides. How has the experience been without using any expletives? Or
it was easy earlier, and we hope it's going to be easier tomorrow or day after, but it's not that the case. And I think David and Fahad have kind of spoken about the fact that in this ecosystem, it is a lopsided ecosystem. It's not an ecosystem which sustains, and let's be very honest, there is a group which has 48% or 52% of share of ratings and share of revenue, and what else is left? Whether that industry is worth 3 billion or 1 billion, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because there is one dominant force and then there is everybody else, and everybody else gets smaller change. And if your reach is not 7 or 8 or 9, then you know what kind of a numbers you can make at the bottom line. So it's not easy to sustain a free-to-air model in this country, in this region at all. It may be profitable for first 4 or 5, and beyond that it becomes extremely difficult. And I know, and I'm in touch with a lot of my friends and colleagues in the industry, the first thing that suffers is quality of manpower, and the second thing that suffers is the quality of content. So you have people running more into third runs and fourth runs on a free-to-air network, where it should be more first runs for people, because they always think that advertising sales can offset all the costs that are otherwise borne on a free-to-air model. And as a result of which, I think we are also facing that challenge, and I have no qualms in admitting that there is a challenge in this market when you're doing any free-to-air business.
But you're still here, so what is it that you're counting on? Because this group...
They say hope is a big thing, so we hope something happens.
I pay him too much.
So, and that's why the contract is now 2 years away, so I can say a lot of things in front of David. And we want to stay invested because we have seen moments of success. And let's name, there is a Fatafeet model, which looks like a model which can work and is working.
But that basically means you go niche and you keep your content cost extremely low.
Well, as long as the market doesn't change, you can't be a fool by putting $100 million on the content cost and then assuming somebody will walk into your door with a 90 million check. It's not going to happen,
but then
right?
That takes us back to that.
So
you're letting the big player dominate, and you're saying, let me go find the nooks.
Well, if you want to hear the fact that the measurement system needs to be changed, okay, then we have to say that, because something is not right in this market, which is making one dominate and others not work up to a standard which otherwise they are intended to kind of match. That's what the problem is in this market. And if this lopsidedness remains, I don't think anybody is going to be happy at the end of the day. It's going to be the same situation 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And what is worse, is that you are paying an advertising dollar for an audience who lives 3 hours of flight away from you. And you're not even bothered about the guy who's consuming it around you or the countries around that place. So the whole system is wrong. I mean, we need to rework the system.
But there's no exclusivity on good ideas when it comes to content. And if you've got a great show and it's on your airtime and people watch it, the problem we've got is that we don't know who's watching it, because we talk about ratings and revenue, but the fact is there are no ratings. So until we get those ratings, because what we'll discover, that there will be smaller channels that will establish audiences with niche content like they have everywhere else in the world, where small channels can do that. And it's that niche content that will then drive an audience, which then will drive advertising dollars to follow it.
Let's talk about the...
But you know, sorry, Karim, you know, we could have run probably 3 or 4 video panels from many, many years ago, and it's still the same thing. We've been talking about this for many, many years. You know, lopsided market, monopoly, 40% of this, 50% of that, and we never seem to be able to go beyond finding some sort of solution. And every time we go back to the same thing, it's about viewership and accurate numbers. Accurate numbers in certain markets and accurate numbers in markets that count, whether it's UAE and Saudi and Kuwait and some of the other places. But we always seem to go back to the same thing. And we're blaming people who are actually making profit. So don't blame them. You know, something has to happen in a different way. But the other point is as well that if we're going to create a different kind of model or market that's going to be far more sustainable, we're going to have to be a little bit smarter. If this initiative of viewership and measuring viewership is going to work, then everybody has to back it up, and everybody has to, anybody who's not part of that monopoly. But the other thing that you worry about is that once you back that, that itself will become a monopoly and start manipulating numbers and manipulating the figures and manipulating everything, that we're going to create another problem. So we have to be 100% sure that if we're going to create these alternatives, we all fully back them, and it is monitored in some sort of ways. But there needs some sort of regulation.
But that's what the broadcasters in Lebanon today are doing. They are demanding an audit of the person who's doing the numbers.
Yeah,
so I'm sure there are ways and means of ensuring that the monitoring system remains pure and clean. I mean, there are ways and means of it.
Let's talk about monitoring systems, because there have been a couple of good moves in the past few years. We have something that's actually up and running from a technical perspective in the UAE that's producing data. We have a project in Saudi that has a certain number of stakeholders and funding behind it and is in the process of implementation. But that's one side, one way of looking at it. So that gives you some hope. You look at it from the other side. In Saudi, you have one very big missing entity. That's the 45. I don't know why none of us want to say NBC.
Give them 60.
That's not backing the project. In the UAE, you have data that's coming out for more than a year now that none of the media buyers, speeches to newspapers are all wonderful, but none of the media buyers are actually using it as currency. So how do we then give it that final push? How do we go from lovely technical installation to actual changing the currency?
You have to get people to believe in it. You have to get people to believe in it. You have to sell it. We talk about money, sales, and marketing, and the one tool that's going to help our sales and marketing, we're not marketing it and supporting it ourselves. But you need people to believe in it, and you have to be transparent. How do you gather your data? How do you collect it? How do you show it? And then people will buy into it.
It's not as simple as
it's
that.
Not,
I have
nothing
to
is
say
simple.
that.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here.
Okay, let's be frank with each other. We are talking about a lot of money, and that a lot of money is being used sometimes to ensure the current situation remains the way it is. Okay? If I'm 50% of the market, I would love to stay the same way. Why should I fund, support, or help to
because being 40% of a market twice the size is better.
Yeah, right. But that means that you know that's what we are saying, and we would like that everybody joins that team. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to say to you, unfortunately, okay, it's not just I've been in meetings with people on one-to-one basis where they would laugh and they would say, "We have nothing to say to you." It's because everybody in the world knows that the worst people meter in the world is better than any catty in the world. Period. You don't need to convince me with that. Any data that comes from a people meter is better than any data that comes from catty, regardless. Because there is a human intervention, blah, blah, blah. Here you don't have it. At the end of the day, Karim, it's about, honestly, regulators. It's about enforcing it. It's about making sure that the licenses are proper, and it's about the international players also coming into it. And when I talk about international players, I'm talking about the clients, the advertisers, everybody should come and say, wait a minute, here is the data that I have to trust. Today, that, with all due respect to UAE, it's still a small market. What we are hoping is with the leader of Dr. Riyadh, the project in Saudi Arabia goes in, and we learn from whatever mistakes we made in UAE, and Saudi Arabia comes, and when Saudi Arabia comes, and inshallah it's coming and it will be successful, everybody will be forced to go there. And then if I'm 1% of the market, then blame me, and I will work to fix it.
There's also one aspect to it, and I have seen that in certain markets, and I come from that market, India, which is the fact remains there is another person in this room who should have been present, but I don't know what that person can say. That's the advertiser. That's the guy who finally spends monies. So we may fume and fret that the measuring system is wrong and this is wrong, but life goes on, as the gentleman here is saying. We need to ask this advertiser, what is he or she spending upon and why? Why is he blindfoldedly spending? And in certain markets, and that's what I'm coming to, in certain markets, especially it's happening in India as we are talking right now, huge market, disparate like the Middle East, languages are different, geographics are different. The advertising industry itself came together. Because remember, the broadcasting industry has its own pulls and pressures, and they would want to keep it that way. The advertising industry came together and has forced the system to change, enabling a layout of 100,000 people meters, notwithstanding the fact that there were some 15,000 earlier in the market through the TAM system. So the industry has come together and forced the broadcaster to actually realize that, it's my money being spent on your asset, and I want a return of that asset well.
Can I ask a hypothetical question? Do you think advertisers would rather have accuracy in knowing where their spend is going, but spending more, or vagueness and no accuracy, but spending a lot lower cost? So he's willing to take the hit on the error.
There are so many advertisers that do not advertise in this region because they cannot be sure that the money that they're spending.
But the big ones are here.
And so, but the big ones are not spending at the rate that they should be spending. The point was, we are the lowest GDP advertising rate in the world.
Yeah.
No, it's not, because ultimately when there is a more accuracy in the knowledge of where it is, we will get to $2 billion in the market instead of $900 million. We will double the money in advertising in the market. And I can be a bit of an honest broker here, because advertising means a very small percentage of my revenue, so I'm not dependent on it. But when we have an example, an absolutely clear example, an advertiser who we encouraged to advertise with us and spent some money with us, and then when we talked to him and he said, I hope you appreciate it, we said, that's fantastic, we really appreciate it, it wasn't much money. We discovered that the agency had taken 80% commission and 20% had come into the media buy. Now when that happens, the advertiser's not going to buy. Now, when we can get proper, accurate daily ratings as a currency, then international advertisers will come into this market.
Okay, but let's also try to be realistic. You're all smart people. Your competitors are run by smart people. The advertisers are multinational, are all smart people. Surely they can all sit and see, okay, if I bring in measurement, then the market size is going to double. Therefore, it will be good for everyone. So assuming all these smart people understand this, then why has it happened? Like Nat said, we've been talking about the same things for more than 5 years.
Fear of the unknown.
But for the multinational, it's not an unknown. They've seen it in other markets.
Yeah, but they're not the ones who have to change it. The advertiser can't change it.
I've been in an international company on the advertising side. Yeah. And basically there, again, exactly what David talked about, or you implied, they are enjoying a very low cost base. So they can afford a machine gun that they can shoot everybody in the room, and they say, okay, fine.
They'll take the error rate.
Yeah, one of them will hit my target, okay? While in other places in the world, the cost is high, it has to be targeted, and that's why they need the people meter, because then they know how to target it. And that's to answer your question, why it's that. Now, so there are too many, what I call interest groups in this matter, and there are, as I said, too much money to talk about. There are a lot of things that are.
And we're all going to be shot when we walk off the stage afterwards.
Could be. Could be. Okay. But at the end of the day, let's go back to the model that has been successful all over the world. You go about. Why are we different? Why we are always different? There is people meter now. You put people meter. Everybody should buy into it. Everybody should support it, and then let's go. Now. That's why we are approaching international companies in home countries, because if we don't understand sometimes why people don't hear in the region.
I think in our schools, last comment, in our schools we used to have somebody, the big bully called the monitor, right? Very important to listen to that guy and finally understand that we have to keep quiet, we have to sit in the class. I think in this industry we need that monitor. We are too many people talking all the time. A regulator has to come into play.
There isn't one regulator that covers.
Well, that's the unfortunate part. These are many markets. So this is a situation.
If they regulate you in one, you just run to the other.
Yeah. So we are really facing that issue that somebody who would have made us sit down and talk to each other and get on to work is not present, is absent.
The answer in business is never to run behind the skirts of a regulator. You've got to sort it out at a business level.
But I think that's one thing that none of us really want to hear as well, is that once we go into more digital advertising, and that grows over the in the future, I think that's more of a self-regulated type of model. That would be a little bit more, because then the numbers are accurate, and that also begs another very important question: is that why isn't that advertising revenue growing in this region as well? And there's a lot of people who don't want it to grow because they want to remain non-linear.
Nicely brings us on to our next topic.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was trying to give you some help there.
Good pitch up.
You're going to lose control, Kareem. That's why I was saying. No, just joking.
Okay, so we have OTT and we have multi-platform. I think let's try not to split hairs too much. There's a lot of overlap between the two. I'd like to start with the idea of basically OTT, so in layman's terms, just getting content to consumers in a way other than a linear TV channel. We have several examples here on the panel. We have David, who was saying, after a lot of time of nothing happening, you went not only with Play, but also now with Go. And we also have Rotana, who has done a lot of experimentation with both offering content for free and also looking at on-demand windows. And our news is probably the best, most suited genre for multi-platform and for going OTT and so on. I think Najio dabbles a little bit with YouTube, but let's start with the OSN part. Was this a defensive move? Because Netflix and ICFlix and every man and his dog wants to open an OTT company and platform.
No.
Is this the future of your business then?
It's a collaborative business. If as a traditional broadcaster, it's quite funny because when multi-channel started pay TV, we thought we were new media. Now we're old media, and new media is something else. If we did nothing, then other people would come and eat our lunch. But as ultimately the platforms are about the delivery of content. The consumer is desirous to get their content in many and varied ways, whether it's information services like news, whether it's entertainment services to their tablet, to their smartphone. And we could see it as competition, but what we prefer to do is see it as opportunity. Because we are ideally placed to be able to be the person that aggregates the very best content, because we have control of the very best content. And yes, there are other players in the market, but the thing that differentiates the products is the content. And ultimately, as we all know in our industry, content is king. It hasn't changed and it never will. And thankfully, the content industries are in fairly rude health. So we extended our initial setup into OSN Play, which is a free service for OSN subscribers, because the value proposition for that is very, very simple. People who take OSN Play churn at a rate 5% lower than people who don't, because they get the value of being able to use their subscription beyond the television set. Go is a product that is designed to ensure that we can get premium content to non-subscribers in a subscription video on demand model. And you talk about Netflix. One of the whenever as an industry we sit and we talk about the competition coming and Netflix is going to come and eat our lunch and take over from us, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that these subscription video on demand services are not first run premium. They are second run premium. You don't get the latest series of Homeland on Netflix. You get last season, and the latest series is on broadcast. And so Go is a collaborative product so that it goes alongside so a good example is on Go now, you can go back and watch all 6 seasons of Sopranos. Every episode has ever been made. These sorts of products which are great content, but they're not fresh content.
When is Go going to be fresh content, you think?
Well, whilst the broadcast...
Is there a timeline where that becomes the leading...
No. The broadcast proposition is still a broadcast proposition. And everyone's been trying to write off the broadcast industries for... we were commenting earlier when we were standing outside, Bill Gates in 1999 told us that television as we knew it was dead. Well, let me tell you, it's in pretty good health. I have the privilege, as do some others in this room, of going to the LA screenings to look at the new content being delivered every year. There has never been more investment in original content, and there's never been more Hollywood directors and actors and producers producing television. The quality of content coming into the television industry has never been better. And the reason that's happening is because there is still a huge economic imperative to the broadcast screen. You know, the average...
Can I stop you for a second? This huge economic imperative exists in a country called the United States that has a cable ecosystem that pays a lot of money.
20 years ago, 80%...
doesn't exist here.
20 years ago, 10 years ago, 80% of revenue in television was created out of the US and 20% came out of the international markets. Today, 45% is in the US and 55% is in the international markets. So
how much of that percent is here?
I can tell you, we pay hundreds of millions of dollars for content, and we're profitable, so there must be a reason. And there is an imperative. There is an imperative that is still growing. And the reason we still invest in content, both by and large in acquisition and in small parts in original, is because people will subscribe to watch a premium. So yes, they also want to take their content onto second screen devices, and yes, as a broadcaster we need to fuel that, and we're very proud of the products that half the team sitting in this room have created for us. And we will continue to stay at that technological forefront. But the reason is the consumer wants to view them in different ways. They're still prepared to engage in that process, and there's still a huge economics associated with television content, and it will be ever thus.
Okay. Now, do you have any interesting data in terms of how your content gets consumed versus from your linear channel versus other platforms, digital platforms?
Yes.
What does it look like?
And it's very, very interesting. I'll go into that as well in a little bit more detail. I think the thing that we're seeing at the moment is that we no longer call them viewers. They are users. You know, people use the material. They don't view it anymore. And if it indicates or implies that it's some kind of a drug habit, there's a lot of similarities. Because the viewer, that's now the user, is a very, very difficult person. They want to see it anytime they want, anywhere they are, and in any way or form or matter that they want to see it in. So that makes it a very, very difficult thing to be able to provide. Well, content, they always say content is king, that's very important, but the queen is the delivery.
King and queen.
No, the queen is but we know who rules the house at the end of the day. So that's but you know, that's the thing about how people are consuming the content. For news, it's a little bit easier because you're always dealing with shorter clips, and it's always a little bit about, if your content is good, people will find you. But if your content is not that good, then you have to be able to distribute it in any way, shape or form. But the uptake of digital is...
Do you have any specific numbers?
I mean, for us, we double almost every year. So 3 years we've doubled over a certain period of time.
But is TV still 90% of your viewership, or 90% of how you reach people?
Well, that goes back to the original problem. You don't really know. You don't really know. But you do know that your usage in certain geography is so high that they must be watching your linear channel as well. And that's why that's going to become more and more the currency. When we go into pitch to a client, and they say to us, well, your viewership is this or that, immediately, what you show immediately after that is your digital uptake. You say, well, I've got X million of viewers
using
on
the
YouTube.
measurability of digital as a way to compensate for the lack of
well, it's unique for news because it's different. It's about watching a clip or watching apart from live.
You can use it for downloads of an episode. You can use it for downloads of a movie.
Of course.
And it's a great anti-piracy tool also. I think the whole OTT model can be used very well to give content and serve content which otherwise the person who's not able to watch it on a linear platform can kind of watch it in terms of small videos and all
with all due
that.
respect to us and to everyone in the room, we're old. All of us are old. There's nobody young in this room.
No.
Not mentally, physically.
Sorry?
All the ladies
We all
are
object,
extremely young, of course. The ladies all stopped at 27,
Okay.
I think.
And the facts are, and this is the fact, because the last panel talked about broadcast dying and OTT, and we've done the same. The facts are, people are watching more television today than they ever have before, as well as, on top of that, second screen. And it's not just the older demographic.
We can't make that statement for sure here if we don't have appropriate measurement.
And I can tell you, because we measure our audience, 52% of our audience watch more than 4 hours a day of television before they get to the digital screen. I can tell you that we're doing 20,000 downloads a day on OSN Play. In addition to that, I can tell you what they're watching on OSN Play because I have real-time analytics.
How old is your audience?
How old is the audience? Well, we range from, it's the homeowner, so we're into, but the audience, the viewing audience, is children in the home as well. And when you look at the statistics of the 16 to 35s, they're still watching television.
I understand the Disney Channel kind of things. You can assume there's a, and I can understand the.
Karim, what's the question? Is it a sense of a disbelief that the digital or the OTT market is growing at the expense of something?
No, never mind. I'm talking about habit. I don't know if there's anybody.
Yeah, but trying.
Oh, we just started.
I think
and if today you're 12 or 13,
and if the Indian starts speaking, then you know what happens.
If today you're 12 or 13 or 14, you have a mobile that has access to YouTube. You're used to getting stuff that you want. I don't argue that content is not, there's more content, there's better quality content, there's more viewership of content, but isn't the concept of a broadcaster the one that's actually being...
And the 16-year-old today, in 5 years' time, is going to be 21, and they're going to think about getting married, and they're going to set up a home, and what they do is they come off their digital devices and they go onto the television set. So all we're doing is we're transitioning an audience.
Hope or
yes.
this is
Absolutely.
empirical data.
This is data. Look at it's not just in this market, it's every market. Sorry.
What has also happened with content is that there has been a delay amongst a certain audience which used to be otherwise hooked onto television, which is the 5 to 15. So probably starting their life watching television at 5+, that's how the ratings also worldwide said 4+ and all that. Today happens a little later. Yeah, you are more on small screens and Instagrams and watching, whatever Netflixes of the world. And you start your television a little later. Okay, that's a perceptible shift which is happening around the world. That's not only happening here; it's happening in my house also. My younger ones don't watch television, but they will watch.
It's not only a shift of not watching television. It's a shift of
again, open here. You're right.
Content. Again, but still, let's go back. And I like what David said. They still watch TV.
Yeah.
Okay,
they watch TV content, but they don't actually watch video. TV channel. So what will you do when your channel is watching video?
This is why I have always said there is nothing called new media. There is media. There is sender, a content, a receiver. Okay? What we are arguing today about is the method of delivery.
Which is fundamental for a pay TV business, for example.
It is fundamental even for free-to-air. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that think about the aggregate thing. You have the whole thing. Okay? And I don't buy that. The new kids or all of them are, my kid, I've seen him literally having, playing the Xbox. The guys from the CTOs were talking about 3 that he had his iPhone and iPad and he was watching TV. Guess what? He has also the Xbox and he was playing as well. Okay, so basically, but he watches TV. He watches, for him, he's 14 years old. He doesn't miss any football match for Manchester United. He doesn't miss any.
But life is different.
But what I'm trying to say, that's TV. Still, for him, it's 2 hours.
It's video, not TV.
No, it's TV. He's watching live.
They don't watch TV.
TV.
TV for them is the Wi-Fi signal on their iPad. That's TV for them. If they get Wi-Fi, that's TV for them.
But does it matter? Because if the content's getting to them, it doesn't matter.
That's fine. But again, I'm just trying to go back. Sometimes we get into this like discussions about terms and all of that. At the end of the day, you need to generate content, good quality content that the consumer or the viewer or the user wants, and you need to make money out of the product.
And that's why you all should come to Fox International Channels and National Geography because, I have the best position out there because I have the content and let the platform keep selling its content.
Thank you, gentlemen, for such a fantastic panel. While the panel discussion was going on, I had about 6 to 7 messages on my SMS saying this is one of the best CEO panels we've ever had. So a round of applause for our CEOs.